Right now, this exact moment, someone is trying to manipulate your brain. And honestly, I fell for it while researching this video. I'd learn about one psychological trick, and then I'd go buy something I didn't need. I'd understand how scarcity works, and I'd still panic buy limited merch. I'd know about anchoring, and I'd still feel like $200 was a steal when it was crossed out from $400. So, when I tell you that these tricks work, I'm not speaking from theory, I'm speaking from being an idiot. I've spent the last 3 years diving deep into behavioral psychology, consumer manipulation, and dark persuasion tactics. And what I discovered is that there are exactly 10 psychological tricks that corporations, influencers, and even your friends use on you every single day. The crazy part? Most people never even realize it's happening. They just think they're making choices. But here's what I realized. Once you see these tricks, you can't unsee them. And once you can't unsee them, nobody can manipulate you the same way again. In the next 40 minutes, I'm going to walk you through all 10 of these tricks, and I'm going to show you exactly how they work. More importantly, I'm going to show you how I use some of them in this very video to keep you watching. Because understanding manipulation isn't about becoming immune to it. It's about being aware enough to choose whether you want to fall for it. Let's start. Trick number 1, anchoring, the invisible prison. The first trick is called anchoring, and it's so effective that I'm genuinely surprised it's not illegal. Here's how it works. Your brain makes decisions based on the first number it sees. That's literally it. The first piece of data becomes your reference point for everything that comes after it. And whoever controls that first number, they control your decision without you even knowing it. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in real life. You walk into a store and see a jacket. The price tag says $200. Your immediate thought is probably, that's expensive. Your gut says no. But then you see it, a line through the original price. It was $400. Suddenly, your entire brain rewires. That $200 doesn't feel expensive anymore. It feels like you just saved $200. You're a smart shopper. You're winning. You buy the jacket. But here's what actually happened. The retailer invented that $400 price. They literally made it up. It never existed. But they anchored your brain to a fake number and then made you feel like you were winning by saving money you were never going to spend anyway. You didn't buy a jacket. You bought relief from a decision you never should have felt pressured about. This is so effective that entire industries are built around it. Real estate agents know this better than anyone. They'll show you 3 terrible houses first. One is literally falling apart. One is overpriced to the point of delusion. One is in a neighborhood where you hear gunshots at 2 a.m. Then they show you the one they actually want to sell. Suddenly your brain anchors to those disasters. Your evaluation isn't, is this house good, anymore. It's, is this house better than those 3 nightmares? You don't even notice the shift happening. You just end up buying a house you wouldn't have looked at twice if they'd shown it to you first. Car salesmen use the exact same trick. They quote you a crazy high price first. You almost laugh. It's ridiculous. Then they come back with a better number that's still way too high. But your brain anchored to the first insane number, so the second number feels reasonable by comparison. Even salary negotiations work this way. Whoever says a number first basically wins. That's why employers pressure you to name your number first. Whatever you say becomes the anchor. If you say $50,000, they negotiate down to $45,000. But if they say $60,000 first, you negotiate down from there. You think you're negotiating, you're actually just reacting to their anchor. Here's the truly dark part. Your brain didn't evolve in a world with price tags. It evolved in a world where the first number you heard was actually meaningful information. If your ancestor heard, there are 50 wolves in the forest, that number was real. So your brain treats every number the same way, as legitimate data, even when it's completely made up. The manipulation. Companies know your brain can't distinguish between real and fake anchors, so they engineer fake anchors everywhere. They're not lying. The price was $400 for 3 minutes in one store at 2 a.m. before they marked it down to create the anchor. Technically true, morally questionable. What you need to do. Before you make any decision involving numbers, actively ignore the first number you hear. Ask yourself, what is this actually worth to me if I saw it alone, with no reference point? Create your own baseline before you look at their number. The moment you do that, their anchor loses 90% of its power.
You're not reacting to their number anymore.
You're comparing it to your own. Trick number 2, scarcity, the panic button. The second trick is scarcity, and it hijacks something primal in your nervous system. You're scrolling through your phone. You see a notification. Only 3 left in stock. Your heart rate picks up. Not a lot, just a tiny bit, but enough. Suddenly your thumb is tapping. You're looking at the product. You didn't want this thing 10 seconds ago, but now you're considering it. Scarcity created urgency, and urgency shut down rational decision-making in your brain. This is ancient wiring. When your ancestors saw the last animal in a trap, they didn't have a thoughtful debate about whether they needed it. Their brain screamed, "Grab it now, it's disappearing." That instinct kept them alive. Your modern brain still reacts the same way, even though scarcity doesn't mean survival anymore. It just means you're about to miss out. Retailers know this better than they know their own names. They don't actually stock products in limited quantities because they don't have enough. They do it on purpose because they know scarcity creates an emotional urgency that bypasses your rational brain. You're not thinking anymore. You're feeling. And feelings make you buy. Clothing brands do this constantly. Limited edition drops. Only 50 pieces available worldwide. Even if they could make 5,000 pieces, they don't. They make 50 and tell everyone the truth, which is technically not lying, but it's definitely psychological manipulation. Now you feel like you're part of an exclusive group. Now you feel like you're missing out if you don't buy. The product didn't change, but the scarcity changed your brain. Airlines weaponize this at a level that's honestly impressive. Only 2 seats left at this price. You book immediately. But here's the thing. There are probably 50 seats left at this price. The price will be the same in 3 hours. I'm not even certain about that.
But your brain doesn't verify.
Your brain just sees the scarcity signal and panics. Panic makes you book. Dating apps are maybe the most insidious version of this. They show you matches that expire in 24 hours if you don't message. Now you're stressed. Now you're messaging people you might not have messaged otherwise just to beat an arbitrary deadline. The match didn't actually expire. Matches don't expire. It's a fake deadline. But your brain doesn't know that. Your brain just reacts to the countdown. Here's what's crazy. Event tickets, limited time sales, exclusive drops, they all use the same trick. They create artificial scarcity. They create fake deadlines. And we all fall for it because we're running on ancient software. The manipulation, your evolutionary wiring makes you believe that scarcity equals value. Something rare must be important. But in the modern world, rare is often engineered. It's manufactured to trigger your ancient survival instincts. They're literally weaponizing your own biology against you. They're using your fear of missing out to override your decision-making ability. But here's where it gets darker. The company isn't even lying. The scarcity might be real, but they engineered it specifically because they knew it would make you panic. They're not tricking you, they're just using your brain's vulnerabilities against you. And that's somehow worse. What you need to do. Every time you feel urgency, pause. Actually pause. Put the phone down. Wait 24 hours. If you still want it, you want it for real reasons. If it disappears, that thing wasn't actually scarce. It was urgency theater. And theater ends. Trick number 3, social proof. The fake crowd. The third trick is social proof, and it's the reason you think 50,000 people can't be wrong. Your brain makes decisions by looking at what other people do. This is called herding. It's a shortcut. If everyone is buying a product, it must be good. If everyone is using an app, it must be worth using. If everyone believes something, it must be true. Your brain outsources decision-making to the crowd. This made sense when your ancestors lived in groups of 150 people. The crowd was usually right. The crowd had local knowledge. The crowd had social consequences if it was wrong. But on the internet, the crowd is often purchased. Here's how companies weaponize this. Fake reviews, fake user counts, fake testimonials, fake engagement metrics. You go on Amazon and see a product with 4.8 stars and 50,000 reviews. Your brain immediately assumes this must be legitimately popular. But what you don't see is that the company bought 15,000 of those reviews from review farms. What you don't see is the algorithmic suppression of the one-star reviews. You're looking at a fake crowd, and your brain is treating it like real social proof. Influencers do this constantly. An influencer has 1 million followers. You see that number and think, this person is credible. But 40% of
Those followers are bots. They're not people, they're code.
But your brain sees the number and doesn't verify it. Your brain just calculates. 1 million people think this is worth following, so it must be credible. Credibility is fake. It's purchased. It's manufactured. But your brain doesn't know that. TikTok literally shows you engagement metrics in real time. View count, likes, share count. This creates social proof on steroids. This video has 2 million likes, so it must be good. So I should watch it. So I should like it. The metric itself drives the behavior that creates the metric. Fake social proof becomes real social proof, becomes metrics that influence millions of people. But it gets worse. Restaurants put their best reviews on the window. They don't show the bad reviews. The one-star reviews exist. They're on Google. They're real. They're out there. But they're hidden from you at the point of decision-making. You see 4.7 stars and don't think about selection bias. You
Just think it's good.
Here's what's insane. Scientific studies get weaponized this way too. A company funds 100 studies on their product. 96 show negative results. 4 show positive results. Guess which 4 they cite in their marketing. Now they can say, scientific evidence shows. And your brain trusts it because science is credible, and crowds are credible, and evidence is credible. The evidence is real, but it's cherry-picked from a crowd of contrary evidence that was intentionally hidden. The manipulation. Your brain can't verify reality anymore. There's too much information, too many people, too much noise. So your brain takes a shortcut. What's the crowd doing? But the crowd is manipulated. The metrics are fake. The evidence is cherry-picked. Social proof has become a tool of mass deception. Here's the thing I haven't mentioned. I'm using social proof in this video. I have a verified channel. I've made videos that went viral. People watch my content. Those are real facts. But I'm showing them to you to make you trust what I'm saying about psychology. So am I using social proof to manipulate you? Technically, yes. But at least I'm admitting it. What you need to do. Don't trust aggregated metrics. Read random reviews, not the top ones. Go to Reddit and see what real people say when they're not being incentivized. Find the negative reviews and read them carefully. They reveal more than positive ones ever will. Always look for the metrics they're not showing you. The hidden data usually tells the real story. Trick number 4. Loss aversion, the fear business. The 4th trick is loss aversion, and it's the reason insurance companies have private jets. Your brain hates losing things more than it loves gaining things. This is called loss aversion. It's not rational, it's emotional. If you have $100 and someone offers you a 50-50 bet where you could win $100 or lose $100, you'll reject it almost every time, even though it's fair mathematically. Even though you have
Nothing to gain or lose on average.
but losing $100 feels approximately twice as bad as winning $100 feels good. So your brain says no. Insurance companies built an entire trillion-dollar industry on top of this one principle. They sell you fear. What if your house burns down? What if your car gets hit? What if you get sick? They activate loss aversion. Now you're afraid. Now, paying $200 a month for insurance doesn't feel expensive. It feels like you're protecting yourself from catastrophic loss. It feels like you're being smart. But here's the insane part. Most people never use their insurance. They pay money for years and never get paid back. The insurance company counted on this. They engineered the fear of loss to be stronger than the rational, expected value of the insurance. They're not betting that you'll need it. They're betting that you'll be more afraid of not having it than you'll be excited about saving money. Banks exploit this with overdraft protection. Don't worry, we'll cover your overdrafts. Sounds helpful. Sounds like they're protecting you. But you pay a $35 fee every time you overdraft. The bank is relying on your fear of a bounced check, which would be genuinely embarrassing, to outweigh the rational understanding that $35 is way more expensive than just not overdrafting. Loss aversion made you pay more to avoid a small loss than the loss would have cost. Credit card companies do this with cashback rewards. You're losing money if you don't use our card. Now you feel like you're losing value by using a different card. So you use theirs. But you're not calculating that you're paying 20% interest on a balance you didn't need to carry. You're optimizing for a tiny cashback percentage while missing that you're losing more than you're gaining. Free trials exploit loss aversion perfectly. The company gives you something free for 30 days. Then you have to actively cancel or you pay. Your brain now feels like you're losing the free service if you cancel, even though you weren't paying for it in the first place. Loss aversion makes you reluctant to cancel. So you don't. You just pay. Gyms literally depend on loss aversion. 80% of gym members pay for memberships they don't use. But they don't cancel because cancelling feels like losing your fitness progress. Your brain activates loss aversion about a progress that isn't even real. You're not actually using the gym. The loss you're afraid of doesn't actually exist, but your brain treats it like it does. The manipulation. Framing something as a loss makes it psychologically more powerful than framing it as a gain. So, companies constantly reframe situations to emphasize what you'll lose, not what you'll gain. They're exploiting your ancient brain's fear of scarcity. What you need to do. When you feel pressure to buy something to prevent a loss, flip the script. Instead of, what will I lose if I don't do this? Ask, what will I actually gain? Be mathematical about it. Remove the emotional fear frame. Make decisions based on logic, not on the fear of losing something that might not even be real. Trick number 5. Choice architecture, the invisible menu. The 5th trick is called choice architecture, and it's how retailers hack your brain in 3 seconds without you even knowing. You walk into a coffee shop. There are 3 sizes: small, medium, large. Most people choose medium. It feels balanced. It feels like the safe choice, the Goldilocks option. But here's what the coffee shop did. They engineered the menu so that medium would feel like the obvious choice. Medium isn't in the middle because they calculated some ideal size. They chose it to be in the middle because they know your brain optimizes for the middle option. It's called the Goldilocks effect. You want something not too big, not too small, just right. It feels like a balanced choice, so they price it perfectly to push you toward medium. Small feels too cheap and small. Large feels too expensive and excessive. Medium feels just right. They just made that decision for you. Obama's healthcare website had 3 enrollment options. When they changed which option appeared recommended, enrollment changed by 10%. The actual product was identical. They just moved where it appeared on the screen. That's choice architecture. Best Buy does this constantly. They show you the cheap version and the expensive version. You almost never see an in-between version. The cheap one feels crappy and limited. The expensive one feels premium and powerful. Your brain picks the one in the middle price range. But they designed the visible options so that middle is actually expensive. Streaming services use this perfectly. Netflix has 3 tiers: The cheapest feels limited. The most expensive feels like overkill. The middle tier feels just right. It feels like the smart choice. So you pay more because they engineered your decision. Restaurants put candy at the checkout, not
Because they think you're thinking clearly. They know you've made all your decisions. Your brain is tired. You're in decision fatigue. They put low-resistance items where your decision-making ability is at its lowest. You just grab it. Uber shows you 3 ride options. Uber X, cheap. Uber XL, bigger. Uber Black, luxury. Most people pick Uber X, but Uber profits most on the middle option, Uber XL. It's the sweet spot. So they engineered the architecture so the middle option appears expensive enough to seem premium, but reasonable enough to seem smart. The manipulation. You think you're making a free choice, but the choices themselves are designed. The options are curated. The defaults are chosen for the company's profit, not for your benefit. You're not choosing from every possible option. You're choosing from options they specifically architected to guide you toward a particular choice. Here's the twist. I'm probably using choice architecture in how I present these tricks. I'm giving you 10 options, all formatted the same way, all ending with what you need to do. That's architecture. I'm making it easy for you to accept my framework by framing all the tricks the same way. What you need to do. Recognize that every choice you see has been architected. The options were deliberately selected. Ask yourself, what options am I not seeing? If there are only 3 coffee sizes, could you ask for 8 ounces? If there's no obviously cheap option, could you order water? The moment you recognize the architecture, you can reject it. Trick number 6. The reciprocity trap. Guilt as currency. The 6th trick is reciprocity, and it's hardwired into your conscience so deeply that you probably don't even notice it. When someone gives you something, you automatically feel obligated to give something back. This is reciprocity. It's built into human culture so deeply that you're not even aware of it. You feel guilty if you don't reciprocate. It's not a rational calculation. It's an automatic emotional response that fires up before you can even think about it. Marketers weaponize this relentlessly. Free samples at the grocery store aren't free. The company is literally buying your obligation. You feel guilty if you take a sample and don't buy the product. Your brain experiences actual guilt and negative emotion if you sample something and walk away empty-handed. So you buy. You're not buying the product, you're buying relief from guilt that a corporation manufactured. Free trial periods work the same way. You use the service for 30 days, you get real value from it. Canceling now feels like betraying them. They gave you something, and now you owe them. It's not rational. You're literally experiencing debt-like emotions toward a company that doesn't care about you as a person. But you pay anyway, because guilt is powerful. Charities do this brilliantly. They send you free address labels in the mail. Most people throw them away. But some people feel obligated to donate because the charity gave them something. The address labels cost 5 cents to produce. Donors might give $20. That's a 400 times return on their investment in manufactured guilt. LinkedIn uses this constantly. Someone endorses your skill. Now you feel obligated to endorse them back. It's a tiny thing, but it's building reciprocal relationships that benefit LinkedIn's algorithm. Every reciprocal action is a data point. Every reciprocal action means you're more engaged on the platform. The bartender gives you an extra pour for free. It's called a pour. It costs them 50 cents in product. But you feel obligated to tip more. You're not consciously calculating this. Your brain is automatically activating debt-like emotions. Even apologies use reciprocity. A company messes up. They apologize. They give you a discount. Now you feel like they've been generous and you owe them loyalty. The discount was mathematically calculated based on the lifetime value of your relationship to them. They're not being generous, they're making a calculated investment, but your brain interprets it as generosity and reciprocates with loyalty. The manipulation.
Companies learned that giving creates psychological debt. You don't have to trick people into being obligated. Obligation is automatic. All you have to do is give first, and the obligation will follow. Your own conscience will do the work of getting you to reciprocate. Here's where it gets dark. I'm giving you something free right now. This video, this knowledge, this framework for
understanding manipulation.
And now your brain is going to feel obligated to me. You're going to be more likely to subscribe, more likely to watch the next video, more likely to tell your friends. I'm not being generous. I'm activating reciprocity. What you need to do, recognize that free things are never free. The company is buying your obligation with a small gift. Before you accept anything free, ask, what is this company expecting in return? Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's your data. Sometimes it's your attention. Sometimes it's your loyalty. Sometimes it's just to trigger reciprocity. The answer will reveal the company's actual intent. Trick number 7. The default effect. Why you don't choose. The 7th trick is the default effect, and it's the single most profitable psychological discovery of the last 50 years. When you have to make an active choice, you often don't. You stick with whatever is already selected. The default option is psychologically weighted. It feels like sharing your data. Gmail defaults to tracking your behavior. Every company does this because they know the default captures the vast majority of people who never change it. Credit card companies make you opt out of overdraft protection instead of opting in. The default is yes, charge me $35 per overdraft. Most people never change it. They just pay the fees for years. One state changed their electricity default from using renewable energy to using coal. Renewable energy sign-ups dropped from 49% to 8%. Nothing changed but the default. The option was still there. You could still choose renewable, but defaulting to coal meant fewer people bothered to switch. Retirement plans use this. Employees are auto-enrolled in the company 401k by default. Enrollment goes up to 90%. If they had to actively enroll, it would be 40%. A company just doubled retirement savings with a default. Streaming services auto-renew subscriptions. The default is keep paying. Most people don't actively cancel. They just keep paying until they notice the charge 3 years later. Even LinkedIn makes endorsements default to approved, so you have to actively reject them. The default is, yes, I'm skilled at this. Most people just accept it. The manipulation. Companies know that most people won't actively change the default, so they set the default to benefit themselves, not you. It's not a coincidence. It's a carefully calculated strategy to extract maximum value by doing nothing. Here's the thing about my content. The default on YouTube is subscribe. I'm using that default. I'm making it easy to stay subscribed, harder to unsubscribe. That's the same trick. I'm benefiting from your inaction. What you need to do: go through every major digital service you use, change the defaults, turn off location tracking, disable auto-renewal, opt out of data sharing, remove yourself from marketing lists. Don't accept the defaults, reverse them. The moment you start actively choosing against defaults, you're no longer being manipulated by inaction. Trick number 8, framing. how identical things feel different. The eighth trick is the framing effect, and it proves that you don't actually make rational decisions. Here's a classic study. Doctors were asked to evaluate a surgery with a 90% survival rate. Most chose to perform it. Then the same doctors were asked about the same surgery, but it was described as having a 10% mortality rate. Most chose not to perform it. The actual risk was identical. 90% survival equals 10% mortality. It's literally the same math. But the frame, survival versus mortality, changed the decision. Your brain doesn't make decisions based on data. Your brain makes decisions based on how the data is framed. Marketing is all frame. A product is 95% fat-free. Your brain thinks it's healthy. That same product could be described as 5% fat, and your brain would think it's fatty. The actual product is identical. The frame changed your perception and your decision. Car insurance. Full coverage insurance sounds more comprehensive than standard insurance with $1,000 deductible. The actual coverage might be identical, but the frame made one sound more protective. Pharmaceuticals use framing relentlessly. A drug has a 70% effectiveness rate, but it could also be framed as 30% of people still experience symptoms. Same fact, different emotional reaction. One makes the drug sound good, one makes it sound risky. The data didn't change, the frame did. News outlets frame the same event completely differently. Unemployment drops to 4% versus 4 million people still unemployed. Same statistic, different emotional frame. Your brain reacts completely differently depending on whether the frame is positive or negative. Political campaigns are built on framing. Tax cuts for the wealthy versus keeping more of what you earn. Same policy, completely different frame. One feels selfish, the other feels liberating. The policy didn't change. The frame did. Your vote might change. Retailers frame prices as monthly payments instead of total cost. A car is $299 per month instead of $15,000. The frame makes it feel affordable, even though you're paying more in interest. You're doing the exact same thing, spending money on a car, but the frame changed how your brain evaluates it. Amazon frames delivery as free shipping instead of included in the higher price. Your brain experiences free as a gain, even though you're paying for it. The frame is doing the work, the manipulation. Reality is neutral, but frames are not neutral. Frames activate emotions. Frames direct your attention. Frames make identical things feel different. Once you control the frame, you control the decision. Companies spend billions on finding the frame that makes you most likely to buy. Here's where I'm doing this in this video. I'm framing these tricks as dark and weaponized against you. That's a frame. I could frame them as companies understanding psychology or optimization techniques. But dark psychology tricks feels more urgent, more threatening, more watchworthy. The reality is the same. The frame makes you care more. What you need to do: always ask yourself, how is this being framed? If something is being described positively, look for the negative frame of the same fact. If something is being described as a gain, look for what you're actually losing. Strip away the frame and look at the underlying data. Numbers don't lie, but frames do. Trick number 9. Urgency engineering, when your brain stops working. The 9th trick is urgency engineering, and it directly shuts down your prefrontal cortex. Urgency is the enemy of rational thought. When you feel rushed, you can't think clearly. Your brain switches from deliberate thinking to fast thinking, from logic to emotion, from analysis to instinct. Companies know this, so they engineer urgency everywhere. Sale ends tonight. Only 3 tickets left at this price. Limited time offer. Last chance. These aren't informational. They're psychological tools designed to shut down your rational brain and make you act from emotion. Time-limited offers literally put a countdown timer on the screen. It doesn't matter if the same product will be available tomorrow at the same price. The timer creates artificial urgency. Your brain sees time running out and panics. You buy without thinking. The timer isn't there to give you information. The timer is there to disable your decision-making ability. Email subject lines weaponize urgency with single words. Urgent. Act now. Don't miss this. Final notice. These words are meaningless. They don't convey actual information. They create emotional urgency that makes you click and read without thinking. Flash sales engineer urgency on a schedule. A product goes on sale for 4 hours only. The sale isn't real in the sense that it's not actually limited to 4 hours. The discount was calculated, knowing that a tiny portion of people would buy at the sale price. It's mathematically designed. But the urgency makes you participate without evaluating whether it's actually a good deal. Auction sites create urgency with notifications. Someone is watching this item. 10 people are bidding. Even if it's a piece of junk, knowing that others want it makes you want it more. You're not bidding on the item anymore. You're bidding against the competition created by the notification. The notification isn't real data. It's just urgency theater. Job postings use urgency constantly. Positions filling quickly. Only 2 spots left. Even if the job posting has been up for 6 months with no applicants. The urgency makes you submit faster without evaluating if it's actually a good job. Here's what I notice. Every subscription has a deadline. Subscribe before midnight to lock in this price. Tomorrow the price will be the same. You know this. But urgency makes you not want to wait to verify. You just subscribe to avoid the panic. Influencer drops. Merch is going live for 72 hours only. It's the same merch every quarter. But the artificial scarcity and time limit create urgency. You buy without comparison shopping. Password reset emails. This link expires in 24 hours. It's not a time limit because the company needs to secure your account. It's a time limit because urgency increases compliance. People reset passwords faster when they feel time pressure. The manipulation. Urgency is a tool for extracting decisions from you before you've thought them through. It's a tool for making you irrational. Every time you feel urgency in a buying situation, that urgency was engineered. It wasn't natural. It was designed. What you need to do, when you feel urgency, pause. Put the phone down. Actually pause. Sit with the decision for 24 hours. If the offer is real, it will still be available. If it's not real, that urgency was the entire point. They needed you to rush. The moment you stop rushing, the manipulation stops working. Trick number 10. Authority illusion. Why you believe people who know nothing. The 10th and final trick is the authority illusion, and it's why you believe people who have zero actual expertise. Your brain is wired to trust authority. This made sense when experts were rare. A doctor was rare. A scientist was rare. An expert was someone who had actually spent decades learning something deeply. So, trusting authority was a good heuristic. But authority has been completely democratized. Anyone can claim expertise now. Anyone can get a credential. Anyone can build a platform. Anyone can buy followers. So your brain still trusts authority, but authority is now fake. Celebrities sell products they don't use and have never tested. A celebrity doctor sells supplements they've never taken. Their authority in one domain, acting, sports, comedy, is completely irrelevant to the domain they're now selling in. But your brain trusts authority, so you buy. The authority transferred, even though it shouldn't have. White coats. Studies show that someone in a white coat is more likely to be trusted, regardless of whether they're actually a doctor. The authority signal overrides your critical thinking. Companies use this in pharmaceutical ads. A person in a white coat, who isn't a real doctor, just an actor, is more credible in your brain than an actual scientist in casual clothing. The signal matters more than the substance. Titles sound authoritative. A chief marketing officer sounds more authoritative than guy who manages marketing. The title is arbitrary. The authority feeling is real. Dr. Oz has a medical degree but gives health advice that contradicts medical consensus. His authority in medicine is technically real, but functionally wrong. But millions follow him anyway because the title and the credential override the fact that he's giving bad advice. Certifications. You see certified coach or certified therapist and assume they've been validated by some legitimate authority. In reality, certified often just means they paid $500 and took an online course. The authority sounds official. The actual qualification might be worthless, but your brain doesn't verify. Your brain just sees certified and thinks legitimate. Influencers with verification checkmarks. The blue checkmark means nothing. It just means they verified their identity once. Your brain treats it as a credibility marker. Verified equals authoritative. The checkmark doesn't actually mean anything except that they have a phone number. Scientific claims without sources. A company says, research shows our product improves sleep by 40%. No citation, no study. But the invocation of research creates authority. Your brain trusts research without asking where the research is. University affiliations. A scientist affiliated with Stanford sounds more credible than the same scientist with no affiliation. Affiliation doesn't mean Stanford endorsed them. It might just mean they attended a seminar there once. But the authority symbol, the Stanford name, creates trust anyway. News anchors. People believe what news anchors say because they sound authoritative. The authority is in the tone, the production, the official-looking set. The actual truth value of what they're saying is separate from their authority signal. But your brain doesn't separate them. The manipulation. Authority is easy to fake. A credential sounds official but might be meaningless. A title sounds important but might be self-appointed. An affiliate sounds real but might be a loose association. Your brain trusts authority automatically without verifying that the authority is legitimate. Here's the thing. I'm using authority in this video. I have a verified channel. I've made viral videos. People watch my content. I'm wearing confidence. That's all authority. Am I an expert in psychology? Not really. I've read a lot of psychology. 1. Understand these concepts, but I'm speaking with such confidence that you're probably treating me as more authoritative than I actually am. What you need to do: question authority. Always. Ask, does this person actually have expertise in this specific area, or are they famous in a different area and using that fame as authority? Check credentials. Look for conflicts of interest. Find someone with opposing credentials and see what they say. Authority is easy to fake. Don't trust it until you've verified it. So there you have it. 10 psychological tricks that are weaponized against you every single day. Anchoring controls how you perceive price and value. Scarcity creates artificial urgency. Social proof manipulates what you think is popular. Loss aversion hijacks your fear. Choice architecture guides your decisions without you knowing. Reciprocity creates obligation. Defaults capture your inaction. Framing changes your perception of reality. Urgency shuts down rational thought, and authority creates false trust. Here's what's wild. You've probably experienced all 10 of these in the last 24 hours. Right now. Maybe even while watching this video. But now you see them, and that changes everything. The moment you identify a manipulation, it loses most of its power. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to being unconscious about how you're being influenced. Your conscious brain will intervene next time. You'll pause before making decisions. You'll ask questions. You'll think about the architecture that's guiding your choice. This doesn't mean you'll never be manipulated again. These tricks work because they're deeply wired into human psychology. Even knowing about them, you'll still fall for some of them sometimes, especially when you're tired or stressed or distracted, when your brain's defenses are down. But you'll fall for them less often, and you'll fall for them less deeply, and you'll recover from them faster, because the most powerful defense against manipulation isn't willpower, it's awareness. The moment you know how the trick works, you can spot it in action, and the moment you spot it, you can choose. So the real question isn't, how do I prevent manipulation? The real question is, do I want to be aware enough to recognize when I'm being manipulated? Because once you decide that's important, you'll never look at marketing, social media, consumer culture, or even this video the same way again. You'll see the architecture. You'll see the frames. You'll see the defaults. You'll see the false authority. You'll see the manufactured urgency. And you'll make better choices because of it. That's the whole point. But here's the final thing I haven't said. The fact that you watched this whole video might mean you're about to share it. You felt like you learned something valuable. Your brain is now activated by reciprocity. I gave you knowledge, now you feel like you should give me engagement. You might comment. You might subscribe. You might tell your friends. That's not a bad thing. That's just awareness. You now know the trick. So when you do those things, you'll do them consciously. Not because I manipulated you, but because you chose to reciprocate. That's the real difference between being manipulated and being aware.